And then you have to write something on spec, which I don't ever do and I hate. But so I do think that it depends on who the publisher is.
Thank you. And quick bonus question. How many Diet Cokes do you actually have underneath there? Because that was like a magic trick. It just appeared.
I only said one time. Do you have any idea how exciting that is?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy day 3 of Nightmares Film Festival X. Love you guys. Thank you. Hey, it is, a lot of times people open these up and go, it's my great pleasure, but they're full of shit. It is my great pleasure to introduce my friend, my peer, and somebody I look up to, Hope Madden. I want to tell you a little bit about her before we kick it over to her for her workshop, Writing Across Platforms, which is going to be super cool and insightful, unless Hope doesn't want to clear that bar. And otherwise, it'll just be cool to hang out for 20 minutes. Hope is a multi-hyphenate writer, director, writer of Roost in 2022, I believe, which was her first published novel. Pretty frequent, and I'm jealous of this, pretty frequent contributor to horror anthologies with short stories. So I'm hoping she's going to help me get into that business also. Also, award-winning film director and screenwriter. One of the coolest things, and she's half of course, Mad Wolf, the critic team with George, who's sitting here, who you all know. Oh, that's nice. Don't encourage him. And the Fright Club podcast, which I believe is award-winning. If not, it should be. And really near and dear to Nightmares Film Festival. They are our thriller feature leads and just like part of the heartbeat of the festival. So mean a ton to me. But one of the what I started to say is one of the things that I really admire is that Hope and George are autodidacts in that they are constantly teaching themselves how to build reach, how to find new ways of distribution, how to cross-pollinate different formats and different platforms to get even more growth. I don't know if any of you follow them or follow Mad Wolf or follow Fright Club. If you do, you've seen a huge influx of video in promoting themselves. Yes. And that's just, I think, evidence you see with them year after year of them going like, okay, what's going to work now? How do we get to an audience now? So in terms of a writer, which I am first and foremost, that's one of the things that's most important, I think, to our success. First, you have to be a good writer, obviously, Hollywood movies aside. But after that, you've got to connect with somebody, right? You have to find partners who will read your stuff, buy your stuff, publish your stuff. And this will, I think, be insightful because I know Hope in particular, but Hope and George together as a partnership have done so much work in that. And we've seen the results. We've seen the published books. We've seen the published short stories. We've seen the features, the feature get distributed. We've seen the shorts, the podcast that they do here at Gateway Film Center. So with that, that was a lot of ado, and I'll do no further. This is Hope Madden, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason. I'm super excited to be here at Nightmares Film Festival. As we said earlier, we're like the Phantom of the Opera. We're here anyway. We're going to be in the building anyway, but this is like our favorite time of the year, and I'm very excited. And I do want to talk about how to, for one thing, leverage publishing as an opportunity to get a film made. But we're going to watch, it's really short, like 5-minute short film. And I'm going to tell you a funny story about it because I wrote it based on Nightmares Film Festival and an actual experience I had here. But the short film became this book. So I want to start with this short, Killer Pictures, and then I want to just hopefully, I'm not going to tell you how to write anything because most of you are writers and very likely better than I am. What I want to tell you is how you can, if you write across platforms, how you can use those tools to get a feature film made. So, but I want to start with this movie because I'm really excited because my cat is in it. I do want to tell you really quickly the story about how that short came about. As Jason mentioned, I'm a juror here, and I have been for like many years. And some years ago, I was scrolling through Film Freeway looking for a movie that I was assigned, and I came across a title called Adam, which I found funny because we have a judge named Adam. And then I scrolled, and like 3 films later was a movie called Jason. Perhaps you know Jason from the festival or the movie you just watched. And I remember thinking, if my name is a title in this queue, which could happen, right? Because it's just a word. My name is just a word. I thought, I will quit this festival and never go again. And then I'm like, why? Like, wow, that seems like a very big reaction to this. And would I care as much if it was a comedy film festival? So the idea of why I was so freaked out by this, that's what prompted me to write this short, which then eventually turned into a feature-length screenplay and this book. But obviously, we also shot the short, which I'm using clearly for this workshop today. And I am using as a trailer for my book, and I'm using as a proof of concept for a feature script that already exists and has a publisher behind it. So I think that's really what I want to talk about. When you write the same story across multiple platforms, I'm sorry, if I don't open this pop right now, I'm going to start crying. Okay. You create a whole big set of tools that you can use that will give it more of an opportunity to find some success. And as soon as one of the things that you do finds success, you have a better opportunity to find additional success, which in the long run is going to mean an audience. So, for example, if you get a short story published in an anthology, you're more likely to find somebody who is going to want to help you make the short film. If you get a novel published, you have created IP that immediately makes the screenplay more valuable. And the more copies of the book you sell, the higher the value of your screenplay. And then the other thing that happens, and I swear that this is true, when you write across platforms, every time you write one version of it, the next one gets better. Because no matter what kind of thing you're writing, poem, memoir, screenplay, picture book, you're focused on specific things, elements that are specific to that format that you've chosen, that maybe aren't that important to the other elements, but you import those things to the next version when you write the next version, and that makes the next version stronger. So I started with the short screenplay, and I used the sort of catalyst, rising tension, inevitable but surprising punchline style conclusion, the old Twilight Zone template. And what, not all shorts are the same, obviously, but what that style has going for it is a very clear beginning, middle, and end. And then what short films generally have going for them is brevity. You are eliminating everything you don't absolutely need to tell this particular story because you're trying to get it succinct. But what that means also is that you've left out details that you can use to enhance the story if you ever make it longer. And what it leaves you with is this perfect premise, a perfectly crafted little beginning, middle, and end premise. And when you sit down to write anything long form, you have to have a premise. Like that is the building block of everything that you're going to tell. But you already have one because you've written this style of a short story. So it's a great first step toward having a screenplay. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to turn this into a feature-length screenplay, and then so many other people, I stole ideas from people who are a lot smarter than me, because what a great screenplay has is structure. I took ideas from John Truby, The Elements, or The Anatomy of a Story, Sid Field's Save the Cat, and Blake Snyder, Save the Cat, Sid Field's The Foundation is a Screenplay, and I rewrote it, I rethought it. I had a premise, and I gave it a central conflict, and I worked out the designing principle, and, I figured out all of the elements, the character weaknesses and needs, and then I wrote an opening image, and, I broke it in two, and then there's the midpoint of no return, and the bad guys close in, and the whiff of death, and the all is lost, everything that these guys tell you to do. And what I ended up with was feature-length screenplay that, like all American films since the 1930s, has a 3-act structure composed of all of those elements. And I liked it, and I thought it was funny and bloody and fun, and I would have been happy to make it right at that minute. But I think I'm telling none of you anything that you don't already know. It's incredibly hard to get a feature film made. So I thought to myself, you may not realize this, it's a lot easier to get a book published. It's hard, and You have to have like a really high threshold for rejection, for sure. But all it really costs you is time, and self-respect and self-esteem, but also just time. And what I'm saying is basically what it doesn't cost you is money. And so the other thing that I think a lot of people, it's a daunting idea to write a novel, but you're not sitting down to a blank page. You already have a well-conceived premise, and you have a really nicely structured, very filled out with scenes and dialogue and characters. You have an outline for your novel. When you write a novel, aside from having just the idea for the novel, the hardest part is keeping the middle where it needs to be. It gets gushy, it loses focus, it just goes all over the place. That doesn't happen when you start with the structure of a screenplay because they're so very structured. So you work all of those things out and you turn it into a novel. And the thing about that is what a novel does that you don't necessarily do in a screenplay is you don't have to answer all the questions, right? You can leave a lot to the audience's imagination in a 90-minute runtime. You don't have to tell the reader, but you have to know the answers. Like, you have to know why your character does the things they do, why their behavior might seem surprising, but it's natural given their background, given their context. You have to know how they know the other characters. You have to give those characters all voices. You have to know things like how the carcass smells, how the little body feels warm in their lap. You can create the whole world of the story. And then you actually get to do a lot of the things that, strictly speaking, are not the purview of the screenwriter. Like, what do they look like? What are they wearing? What music do they listen to? So you work all those things out. You have your novel or your novella. And the thing that is, and I swear that this is true, it's going to make your screenplay a ton better, like way, way, way better, because all of a sudden you go back to the screenplay, you're going to realize that you have certain action happening exclusively to move the plot forward, which you really can't get away with in a novel. You're also going to notice that probably a lot of your characters sound exactly alike. They probably sound like you when they talk to each other. You really can't get away with that in a novel either. You have to figure out all of the different characters and their backgrounds and how they talk. And so you're going to improve the screenplay, which is going to make that better and likelier to get picked up. But you're also going to notice when you do that problems with a novel, usually in timeline. Like, you're going to notice where you have the character two different places at once because the timeline of your screenplay is so very, very structured. But in the novel, maybe it's 30 pages apart. But still, they're in the same place. So you're going to go back and fix the novel. And eventually, obviously, you've got to just decide these guys are done. But when you do, you have all of these tools that you can use to sort of blanket different people and see what they want to do. And then you'll find that you have a lot of opportunities. So I'm going to talk about for a second Obstacle Corps, which is our feature film. The first screenplay that I wrote, feature-length screenplay that I wrote, was called Inhuman Resources. And it's sort of 9 to 5 with zombies. And I liked it, and it did well for me in festivals. But I knew that we weren't going to be able to film it. We're not going to have the funds to film it. But because of the type of story it was, it follows a lot of different people inside one office during the zombie apocalypse. And I thought, I'm going to carve this up. I'm going to follow little cliques at a time, tell their whole story, beginning, middle, and end. And I'm going to shoot these as a series of short films. And that way we can do it over years if we want to. And I'll have like 7 short films to do with what I want. And at the end, I'll have an anthology. And that'll be cool. So I did that, rewrote it, 7 short scripts. We were about to shoot the first one. COVID hit. You can't really put a bunch of people in a small enclosed space and have them bite each other. So we had to come up with a different plan. And eventually we made Obstacle Corps because it's entirely outdoors. So it was just a much easier production to mount. But later on, one of the people who were involved in distributing Obstacle Corps emailed me. He was looking for something episodic. He was looking for a show that would be horror and low budget, and did I have anything? And I was in the middle of emailing him back, no, because I never tried to write a show when I realized, hey, you know what those 7 shorts are? There's 7 episodes of the same damn story. I have one. Hooray. So I sent that to him, and we talked about that for a while, and it did fall through, as so many of those things do. But what we wound up doing was giving me it made me get back into the original screenplay, and then that made me reconsider these 7 chapters. And so what I have right now as we speak, I have I'm 2/3 of the way through the first complete draft of what I'm hoping will be my next novel. And we start fundraising for the feature film in Human Resources next month. So if we have a shit ton of luck, 2 years from now, I'll either have a novel that I'm using to promote a new feature, or I'll have a feature that I'm using to re-promote a novel. But all of those things are because I write all of these things across platforms. And the more stuff that you have, the more you can offer. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was, because I feel like you guys all have some sense of how to get a feature made, how to get a short film made, how to write those things. I'm not sure how comfortable all of you are with the world of publishing. I actually come from publishing, so I am sort of comfortable and familiar with what to do with those things. And there are 2 resources that I use that are incredibly helpful and also free. The one is called Duotrope, and it's just a free weekly blast. They do have something that you can pay for. It's not very expensive. It's like $50 a year. But every week they send out an email, and it has lists of agents who are looking for clients. It has lists of anthologies and journals and magazines that are looking for stories, and it has lists of publishers. One of the things about publishers is that most of them only take unagented, unsolicited manuscript for like 1 week out of the year. So this is a really great tool to help you figure that out, when to send something and where to send it. You can compare publishers, see how many of them publish something that is like what you've written. You can also narrow your search for publishers who are specifically looking for content that is adaptable to the screen. I don't know of any publishers who are looking for scripts. What they're looking for is a book they can publish that they can have turned into a movie that will drive traffic back to the book that they've published. They're looking for a re-promote strategy. So if you have both, you have a leg up already, and which is what we did with Killer Pictures. And then the other really great resource is called the Horror Writers Association. I'm not a member, but I follow them on socials. And they don't let you promote your own work. So almost everybody just posts calls for submissions. And one of the great things about HWA is that they've already filtered for horror. You're not going through people who are looking for cookbooks or whatever. They're just looking for horror. And because they're being posted by members, it's usually publishers that they're familiar with. It's usually editors that they're familiar with. A lot of times the posts have like little hints, like they give feedback, or this is about how long it takes for them to get back to you. This is what they're looking for. This is my experience with them. And there are links right to the pages, so you can read the guidelines yourself, see if you have something that will work for them. And in the last 2 years, 6 of the short stories that I've had published in anthologies have come from the HWA posts. Of those 6, one, and they illustrated this one. I was very excited about it. So one is a short story called Meat, and we turned that into a short film called Al Fresco. Another one is a short story called Aggrieved, and a horror podcast reached out to me to turn it into one of their episodes. And then there's a third one. There's an anthology that'll come out later this month called Consumed. And I have a short story in it called Junk Food. And what this publisher does is, 1 year, they put out an anthology of short stories. The following year, they turn those short stories into short films, and they create an anthology feature. And all of that happened because I already had all of that material written, and because I followed up on these free resources. So that's the whole thing. I talk a lot faster than I thought I was going to, so this went pretty quickly. But if you guys have any questions at all, we're also recording this as a podcast, so if you would use the microphones, I'm sorry to be a pain. But if you have any questions about anything, I'm super happy to talk about it. That's Velma.
Yeah, thank you. That was very useful. I think one thing that I think I struggle with, even just with writing shorts, is that I feel like I get pretty spent thinking through the story and the characters, even just in that format. So I guess I'm wondering if you have any tips or things you found helpful when you're, obviously in different formats, but rewriting the same story over and over and over again in these different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I always do is I go to a different project before I come back. I take some time away from this particular group of people, and then I go murder a whole bunch of other people, and then I come back to this group, and you miss them a little bit more as long as you've killed other people first. You're like, oh, look at what I didn't do over here. What havoc I could wreak over here. So that's a really, and also I think. For me, my first novel is called Roost, and it's across 18 years. And it would have been, it would have made a lot more sense to turn it into something episodic than to turn it into like a feature screenplay because of the way it sort of, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. Because I started big, I used up all of my thoughts and ideas. I didn't want to go back and make it, like I just couldn't bear to be with them anymore. So for me, the two things that I found really helpful is one is to start with the smaller thing and always grow it out because there's more ideas that you can add to it. You can get to know the characters better. You can give them more fun things to say. And then also I always do take a side trip and create a whole new something else before I come back to the story. There was something I forgot to say that I want to say too. I have no idea how self-publishing works into this strategy. The benefit to traditional publishing to this strategy is that it opens you and your work up to a huge circle of people that you don't have access to otherwise. And I don't know how self-publishing could do the same thing. I also don't know how you self-publish, so I don't have any idea how it works. But I just wanted to point that out because I know it's a hugely popular thing to do, but I don't know how it would work with this strategy.
You know, one thing I was going to say that you didn't bring up, and I don't know how relevant it is, but your work, how much you depend on spreadsheets.
Well, I do, and I don't know. Yeah, when you send, especially short stories you can send out to as many people as you want. Novels, a lot of times you can only send it out to one publisher, and you have to wait for them to tell you yes or no before you can send it out to somebody else. But short stories, you really don't have to. So I have spreadsheets that help me keep track of where I've sent things. I have another one that'll help me know like when a window opens for different publishers, and then the rejections and things like that. And then I also always keep one as a sort of a comparison contrast of the publishers for novels, because each one has its own sort of personality and the type of things that they send out. And then I just keep another one randomly of places I like to publish short stories with the links just so I can just go right in and see what their calls for submission are and see if I have something that's valuable to them.
Hi, I was just curious if the same rules apply for publishing with novels as they do with graphic novels.
I don't know how to draw, so I'm not 100% certain, but I do think they do. And as a matter of fact, I know somebody who does graphic novels, and I actually think that, and a lot of times, you have more options in publishing. I think that there are a lot of people who are looking at graphic novels as opportunities for animated shorts, for proper shorts. You can do more things with them because you already see what they look like. So I can't speak from experience because, again, I can't draw, but I do think that it's actually probably a better strategy for people who do graphic novels.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my experience with adapting scripts to prose is, it's something that I've done more than once, and then the other way. And a feature-length screenplay, if I do, let me put it in that framework. If I do a straight one-to-one adaptation where I'm not introducing additional characters, additional subplots, if I'm not adding substantially to the story, but only filling it out with internal narrative and all the trappings of prose fiction.
Mm-hmm.
A feature is about 40,000 words,
mm-hmm.
which is square in novella range.
Mm-hmm.
Novellas are hard sells in publishing, as far as I've ever had experience with. I mean, the market for novellas is not big. Whereas novels, of course, 70, 80, 90,000 words, they're, especially as a first-time author, you can get some traction. And I guess the question is your experience in terms of just raw word count similar?
I think that I think that's a great question, and I do think it's probably a common concern. There are a couple things, and a lot of times it depends on what your story is. A lot of times if your story is particularly linear and there's not an opportunity for a B story, I love a B story. B stories in movies are my favorite thing. So I always try to have a B story, and then you can go nutty. You can add a lot of word count there. Both of my books are novellas, technically speaking. So I haven't had a hard time getting novellas picked up. The first one was with an independent, like a proper indie publisher, and a lot of times they're seeking novellas. The second one is with a publisher, more of an established publisher, and I worried, but they also were fine with it. So a lot of times, especially again with the two resources that I usually use, they'll tell you what the word count is they're looking for, so you can just discard anybody who isn't going to be inside the range of what you want. And then also, you write your story until you're done with it. And if it means you're not going to have a B story, or you're not going to have, additional scenes, you're not going to have flashbacks, whatever else that you could be having that is going to add bulk to it. You don't want to add bulk to it just to do that, right? You want to just be answering all the important questions. Then, I think, it might be harder to get a novella published, but that hasn't been my experience.
Okay, well, no, I'm actually encouraged to hear that you did have luck with a trade publisher getting something at Novella Link published, because it's been a truism for a long time that novellas were where stories went to die. And if that's no longer the case, because I know every so often you hear the rumor that, oh yeah, novellas are coming back, because novellas, I mean, if you go back and look at a lot of the major novels, quote unquote, of the 20th century in particular, a lot of them are 40 or 50,000 words. Great Gatsby is not a novella. So if that's actually finally happening.
I have not. It has not been an obstacle for me, for sure. And I think, especially in horror, I think, in fact, I was introduced to the term novelette the other like a couple of months ago when I was just perusing I know, and that is longer than a short story, shorter than a novella. So I think just because publishing has sort of exploded in how it can come out, how they can find an audience, how it can be served up. I think that a lot of people, I don't know what to say, a lot of people don't like to read anymore. They're specifically looking for short books, and so I think publishers have found it's not as difficult for them to sell short books.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially with the advent of POD and as a, something, I mean, POD used to be very shoddy, and now it's basically, you can't tell the difference between it and the trade paperback.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of independent publishers use that. And so it benefits them to have shorter works.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Hi. So, general question just about pitching and querying. Do you have any advice about, I think we're all probably familiar with how you present a feature screenplay in a pitch deck. What is the approach versus a novel or novella?
It's so much easier.
Great.
It's so much easier. They don't want slides. Don't send them slides. My God, yeah. And a lot of times they'll have, so for short stories in particular, a lot of them will just use they'll tell you very specifically what they're looking for. And then others, each one will ask for something different, but all of it is just print, no images. And usually they are very specific about what it is they're looking for. They were going to want a bio, they're not going to want a bio. They're going to want a synopsis that tells them everything, they're not. They're going to want one paragraph that tells them, they want maybe, the first 10 pages and then they'll let you know, or, so every publisher, every call for submissions is very specific about what they want from you. And in zero times is it as demanding as what you need to do for a film. Hi.
So I wrote the sequence, which was a short.
I know, it was great.
Yeah. The sequence actually started off as a short film. All right. The sequence actually started off as a short film, and what you had meant as a short story, actually. So my question is you said you always want to work towards the next big thing, and currently I'm developing the feature, but would you consider a feature or a novel the next big, the next step, I guess?
For me, I like to go, all right, so what I generally have done is gone short to feature to novel, right? Because each one is just, you flesh it out farther, and I find it easier to do. What I have done the last 2 times now is I write the feature and the novel simultaneously. And then they just really, really inform each other in a way that I have currently found very helpful. I don't have any I don't have any hard data on that success yet because I'm in the middle of it, but I do think in terms of just the writing process, it's easier to go to a script and then a novel. In terms of sort of career opportunities, the novel is going to get you to a feature film and not the other way around. So kind of depending on your goals and your timeline, you might want to get the novel sort of out, see if you can have somebody take interest in it while you finish the script. Because so with Killer Pictures, they know that there is a script attached to it. It's one of the reasons that they were interested in the book. They're not going to pursue that unless the book sells well.
Got it.
So in that landscape, the novel comes first.
Okay, perfect. And any advice for somebody that wouldn't be tackling a novel for the first time? It always looks so daunting.
It does.
But it's definitely something I've always wanted to explore.
Yeah. I do think that so when you already have a premise and you're really comfortable and confident with it, it makes it easier. When you're starting with a blank page, you got to figure out what your story is. You have to do everything from the ground up. But when you follow it in this, I have found that it's not as hard. I just keep saying, what do I not know yet? As opposed to, what the fuck am I going to say?
Yeah.
So it's a good place to start, I think.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Hope, can you say a quick word about watching out for AI audiobooks?
Yeah. Yes. When you, especially if you publish with an independent publisher. So we both do voiceover work, and George, who he has a really cool voice. If you haven't talked to him yet, you should. So he has done the audiobooks for both of my novels, and the second publisher just automatically sent it through AI. Just automatically did. It was just like part of the, and it wasn't in my contract, so I didn't know they were going to do it. And so the AI audiobook was out before my published novel was out. And I was like, I know. And it was available for the time. I was like, oh, hold the phone. We can't have that. Like, we can't have that. I'm like, at all. Like, she's like, but it's free for you and me. I'm like, nope, it's no. It's zero, absolutely no. So I do think that it's something, if you're opposed to it, if you're not opposed to it, don't even tell me that. But if you are opposed to it, you should let the publisher, especially an indie publisher, because they're looking to cut costs, let them know in advance. They'll tell they may tell you that you have to supply the voice because they're planning on doing it for free. So if you tell them no AI, you may have to find somebody who is going to record it. Maybe not. I had George, so I don't care. But it is, and also your cover. Like when you sign a contract with, especially an indie, you should ask them if they plan to do an AI cover, if it's something that means something to you. But I think a lot of us are very unused to signing contracts. It's like, woohoo, yay, development deal, whatever. So, but if those things matter to you, AI and the usage of AI, make sure that you talk about that with the publisher before you sign something. I know you.
One of the things I always like to ask my writer friends is a kind of an obstacle that translates between all kinds of mediums, and that's writer's block. I guess it's a two-part question. One, what is your process for overcoming writer's block? And two, does your process change across mediums? Like, do you tackle it differently while writing a screenplay as opposed to writing a novel?
That's a great question, and I wish that I had a great answer, because I kill people so that I don't kill people. I don't have writer's block, and y'all are really lucky about that. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I really don't. I write compulsively. I write all the time, every day. I murder people after work. I murder people in the morning. I write all. I'm frightening. I am. I can hear my words come out of my mouth and think, "Shut up, Hope." But so I'm not that helpful in this because I don't think I've ever had it. But here's the one thing, because I always have so many works in progress, like hundreds, that if I'm on something and I'm not sure what I want to do with it, or like, it's just too awful, which that does happen, right? Where I've painted something so horrifying that I think, God, I don't want to be there today. I have a whole bunch of other ones to jump to. So that's maybe a hint. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I have a question about kind of resume and body of work.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I bring this up is years ago I had a screenplay do well at a festival, and I had a producer reach out to me right away, and she was very interested in my script, so it seemed. And then right away it was like, what else do you have?
Oh.
And she kind of presented it as, yes, we like your work, but we want to see that you're more than just a one-trick pony and that you have something else. So I'm wondering if it's the same in the publishing world. Would they like just the contained story, or do they want to see that the story has legs somewhere else?
I think that's a great question. And so it'll depend on a number of different things. If you are looking for an agent, which you can do over Duotrope, they're going to ask for, you'll send them some sample, and they will immediately ask you what else you have, because you're no good to them unless they can get more than one project out of you. If you go to a publisher for a novel, for example, a lot of times, and you'll know when you look at their website, and if you're going to send something to a novel out, you should spend the time looking at the publisher. And you'll know if they have like a whole series of serieses, that's what they're looking to do. If you go to their individual author pages and those authors have like 15 books in, then that's what they're looking to do. They're looking to create brand with you. It's not bad. That's not a bad thing. The series situation can be a bad thing if that's not what you write. But so it really depends on who you go to, and I think that you can probably prepare yourself for that. Generally, especially if you do like short stories in anthologies, what you're more likely to find is that if you get a short story published with a publisher who does anthologies routinely, and you're not a dick, they will send you. This happened to me a couple of times in the last 2 years, and it's just a delight. They just, hey, we have an upcoming anthology, and it's going to be on this topic. Do you want to be in it? That is the coolest thing ever to happen until you realize I don't have anything about vampire hunters. Shit. And then you have to write something on spec, which I don't ever do and I hate. But so I do think that it depends on who the publisher is.
Thank you. And quick bonus question. How many Diet Cokes do you actually have underneath there? Because that was like a magic trick. It just appeared.
A great opportunity to pause and open it. I just have the 2 here on me right at the moment, but I'm not making this up. I had 7 at my house before I came here today, and I'm going to die soon.
How do you get people excited? I feel like with a novel,
Yeah.
I feel like film has the benefit of being. Can I hold it for you? Okay, you don't have. Yeah, I like being attended to, but I was like, I got it. Like film is a very visual, visceral, and passive medium. So how do you gather because we have screenings, right? So you can be like, hey, everyone in my town that cares about me, come to my screening,
right,
and support me for 15 minutes.
Right.
Versus a novel, you're asking them to purchase and then sit down with it. So how do you do that?
There are a couple of ways. On the one hand, the good thing about a published novel is that you already know in advance how much of that money you're going to get back, and you're actually going to get it back. There are Can
you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there are far fewer predators in publishing than there are in distribution. And so, you know when you sign it. Like my royalties are going to be 18%. So every time they sell a book, I'm going to make $6, whatever. So in that case, you don't really have to work quite as hard because you don't have to have 500,000 people watch it for you to make $25.
Yep.
So that's nice. Also, publishers will send you as many copies as you want for just the print cost. So if they're selling it for $12, they will ship them to your house for like $4 a copy. And so when you sell them yourself, you make actually even more money than you make when they sell them. And you know, usually what you do is find opportunities to, if it's indie, you find your own opportunities to sell it. You like call the bookstores, your local bookstores, and see if they'll let you do a signing. They will. And then they order books, and that's money in your pocket. And then you sign books, and people come out, and then you take pictures of that, and you put it on your social, and then people are like, oh, look, and then they tag you, and then more people. So it's not that different as it is with, except that you, honest to God, you don't have to work as hard.
Yeah, it's less physical, which is nice. To add on to that, like, how do you communicate the vibe? Because we also have the benefit of visual with film. So, like, synopsis, right? Like, but is there a way to get, how do you often get people to buy into your concept other than the like, log line or something? Yeah, it is, it's similar to making a movie. You know, you have to write. And in my experience, you do it. You write back cover copy, and that becomes the copy that's on all of the websites to sell your. So it's very similar, honestly, to figuring out how you're going to draw an audience to a film. You just have to, you have to find really exciting little marketing-y, creepy things to say that make them going to go, ooh, I can't wait. The other thing you can do, because you're a filmmaker, is make a short film that you use as a trailer. So you have something visual, and then they're like, how are these short films killing people? Is this supernatural or natural? And then they're going to go, ideally, buy the book. So sweet, thank you.
We also did a few social videos of you reading from the book.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
that's right.
We went into like Barnes and Noble, and what are you doing here? Oh, don't mind us. And and did a few of those. So pick out a really cool passage, and we did a few of those.
Yeah, we did do that. Yeah, and you can do a lot of the same things that you do when you're trying to publicize your movie. You send out a little press thing to, like, especially your hometown like news channel, like TV stations, and have them let you read a little segment on the air and show your book. I mean, almost all local news is looking for opportunities to fill out their time each morning with segments like that. And they might let you read a little bit, and then they'll put a big blurb up. And then again, it's just a way for you to get the word out to people who aren't following you on social media, just whole other people, old people at home watching the news in the morning and not having jobs. But maybe they like horror. I don't know. Anybody else? Also, I do have copies of the book. If you want to buy one, you can do that. So you can do that too.
So I had a friend that just published a book. It was based off of her own relationships, kind of a true story thing. And they were asking me about book trailers. How useful is that? Have you been doing that, or do you have opinions about book trailers? And is it an opportunity for filmmakers to sort of get pre-involved? Yes, absolutely. I do think that book trailers are a very big deal. In the last 2 years, they've become a big deal. So what I have, this is really too long to be a book. That's how I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it as a book trailer. But usually they are under a minute long, and they're just a fun commercial for the book. Sometimes they look like a sizzle reel, so they're not really part of your book. Sometimes it is somebody reading a book. Sometimes it's people acting out a passage. But they have been, they've become sort of really staples, especially with in indie publishers, because they don't have the marketing budget of like a big publisher, and so they're not pushing it out in their own big channels. They have smaller channels, and social media is the main small channel. So I do think so, and I think that again, then it's your first. You have a visual element that you can use, as a trailer. You can use it as a proof of concept. So they're great. All right, thank you. Mm-hmm. I only said fuck one time. Do you have any idea how exciting that is? Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I was quite certain it was going to be like 3 people, like Tyrone and Daniel and Tim and nobody else. So thank you. Everybody who came out.